British couple Craig and Lindsay Foreman are facing 10 years behind bars in Iran. They were on a once-in-a-lifetime world motorbike tour when they were detained in January last year and later sentenced to a decade in prison on espionage charges, which they completely deny. A UK government minister has said it is absolutely obvious that they're innocent tourists. However, their son Joe, who I'm in Folkestone to meet, claims the Foreign Office is failing to act on clear signals from Iranian officials linking their case to that of a little-known Iranian prisoner currently languishing in a maximum security British jail. Richard Jan, who was once described as Britain's worst stalker, has served 23 years. He was first eligible for deportation when his tariff expired 14 years ago, but he remains incarcerated, costing British taxpayers money, despite the government's policy to remove foreign offenders and multiple attempts from Iranian officials to secure his return to the country. It was shortly after he was refused release to Iran once again last year that Lindsay and Craig were arrested.
This seems like a very credible source, seems like a credible solution, yet you are dismissing it at every opportunity. It might be a building block to the next part of the deal, right? But a deal has to be done. They can't just rot in prison for 10 years. If there's a solution out there to get my parents back, why are we not exploring it?
Speaking from his cell in Evin prison, Craig revealed how he believes that this prisoner is now their best hope of negotiating their release.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, Richard John's been sitting in prison like us, rotting away. You know, he's a sick man. If it means that they can get us out by doing a swap, then why not? I believe this guy, from what I've heard, is fairly old now and ill. I believe, my own opinion, that he surely, if he gets sent back to Iran by a prisoner swap, what harm could he be doing to the UK? I just think that we are pawns in this massive game of chess.
Born in Britain to Iranian parents, Richard Jan was a dual national, but he renounced his British citizenship in prison. This means he will never be released here, but he can be deported to Iran. Over the years, Iranian officials have grown frustrated by his treatment. They've repeatedly called for him to be sent to Tehran and demanded better healthcare for him in jail. Now, The Independent can reveal his case was raised 6 months ago by an Iranian official holding Lindsay and Craig, and the couple now believe a prisoner exchange or his deportation to Iran may be the key to securing their release. We can also reveal Jan's case formed part of high-level negotiations in 2021 for the release of British-Iranian mother Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe. She was detained for 6 years until she was finally freed after the British government settled a £400 million arms debt with Iran. Nazanin's husband, Richard Ratcliffe, is supporting the Foreman's family and believes there is a clear connection between Jan's case and the couple's detention.
The Iranians have been lobbying for Richard Jan for a number of years. He was associated with Nazanin. He was then associated with other hostages, and there was a parole hearing just before the Foremans were taken. I'm sure that's not a coincidence. In terms of precisely what would take to get the Foremans home, he's going to be part of it. Who knows how? It doesn't have to be a straightforward exchange. The UK doesn't do straightforward exchanges. Iran likes to do them, but there are ways of doing it where progress is made in one issue separately from progress in another issue. It's become increasingly important, and for them almost a symbol of the respect with which the Iranian justice system is treated. And so it's become almost symbolic of your failure to allow him to be deported and for us to have, be trusted to look after him and monitor him. We take as a personal slight. I think that's been dangerous for the consequences for British citizens, which has ended up with the Foremans being taken hostage.
In a statement, the Iranian embassy said they viewed Jan's case as a consular and humanitarian matter, and they've repeatedly raised concerns about his worsening health and requested his transfer to hospital. They confirmed there have also been long-standing requests and discussions concerning Richard Jan's return to Iran. They said, from Iran's perspective, the central issue is the protection of the rights, health and dignity of an Iranian national who remains in custody despite serious humanitarian concerns, and facilitating his return to Iran remains an important part of addressing those concerns. A UK government spokesperson warned against publishing the Foreman family's appeal, saying there's no truth whatsoever to the claims of a potential exchange arrangement. And giving credence to these claims is not only wrong, but risks hindering all the other efforts currently being made by this government to secure the Foreman's release. However, appearing on Sky, Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy denied that the government's mind is closed to an exchange.
Those arrangements can be made. It would not be right for me to comment on the particularity because it would undermine the discussions that we're having with the Iranians. But, of course, arrangements can be made.
The couple's phone contact with their family in Britain has now been cut off, and they've launched a hunger strike, which is making them weaker by the day. And in a fresh blow last week, they learned that their appeal against their 10-year conviction has failed. They weren't even allowed to attend the hearing. Joe Bennett is now calling for the government to urgently act to help his parents. Although the Foreign Office insists that Britain does not do prisoner swaps, he believes that Jan is their best hope of getting Lindsay and Craig home.